All right, our recording has started. Good morning, good morning. I want to say welcome to you all, to those students who are here virtually. I just want to give you a virtual hug, and to my students who are going to be watching the recording, going to give you a big hug as well. So I want to say thank you and Happy New Year, and welcome to, let me turn my phone off, welcome to Introduction to Christian Worship. You might hear me say church worship sometime and use it interchangeably, but Introduction to Christian Worship. And make sure you're in the right section. We're beginning today with our virtual uh, class. So remember, for those students who are able to join us, and I do understand people are working and we have other obligations going on throughout the week. Our virtual meetings are not mandatory, but if you are not able to make it on Wednesdays at 11 a.m., you are required to watch the video. So for my students who are watching the video because you're working or doing other things during the day, you're going to make sure that you watch that recording at your leisure, of course, each week, okay? So I've taken the roll. We have some class members who have been with us before, and we have some new members. So good to see you, Charles. We didn't have you last semester, so good to have you with us. And we have some other new members on the roster who are joining us and new to AMSC and new to the Religious Studies program. So I want to say welcome. Today is going to be about orientation, and I hope that we can get into most of our chapter. So let me share your class. Hold on one second. All right, everybody. I am going to share our D2L class. Let's make sure. All right. Somebody let me know, open your mic if you can see our intro to Christian worship class.
Yes, I can.
Super. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am, I can.
Thank you. All right, everybody. So I want you to take some time, if you haven't done it already, to make yourself familiar with the course. Up in the first tab is where you're going to find syllabus and resources. You're going to find the syllabus for this semester, spring 23. I want you to save that, download it. There's a study guide. We won't get into that right now. There's some citation help to help you with your papers. This, I need to check this link again. This is a great documentary on the Black church, and it aired a couple of years ago on PBS. But I believe something happened to that link. I believe the PBS people may have taken it down, so I may have to change that link. You know how they only put it on for a certain amount of time. So make sure you check out that first tab for any resources. I may have videos in there for you. And make sure you download the syllabus and save it to your computer. So you'll see that each week is listed, and you will see what you need to do for that week. So let's go to week 1. So the week of the 9th, January the 9th. Make sure, if you haven't done this already, I need everybody to do the introductory form. It just says, you can just say, hey, my name is Joe. It's okay. But it just says that it's to the school that you are in the class, that you were in D2L, and that you're active. Sometimes we have students that sign up for a class, they never come to the portal, they never participate, and we're trying to figure out what's going on with them, okay? So please make sure that you show us that you're active in the class by just going into the introductory form. I need you to do that tonight and just say, hey, my name is whoever. You know, you can just answer it. It just lets us know that you're alive and well and that you're active in this class and you will not be dropped. All right, I'm going to go over the syllabus in just a second, but I do want you to see that you have, I did post this old video of a previous semester. It's me talking, but today we will go over Christian worship, which is an introduction, and that's our chapter 1. We are also, I just want you to see, I won't go through all of the tabs, but you'll see how your class is broken down. We started on what, Monday the 9th, and we rolled through March the 3rd. It seems like it's far away, right? But it'll go by really fast. Next week, Monday is a holiday, it's King Day. So we really will get started the 17th on Tuesday. Make sure that you follow your syllabus. And so, for example, on week 2, you have another discussion post. I always will post your PowerPoint, so you'll have PowerPoint here. Sometimes I have information or a video that might apply to what we're talking about. We'll talk a little bit more about the Mennonite Church next week. And then I did copy some pages. I know some students said I'm still trying to get my book. So sometimes when I'm able to copy pages, I will. I don't work too well with the scanner, so I have some pages there from Susan White's book, pages 47 through 49. All right, so everybody, I do want to take this time and go through your syllabus. Give me 1 second and I'm going to pull that up on the screen. Hold on 1 second. Let me stop sharing. I'm going to pull that up on the screen so you can see it. All right, everybody, here it comes. Let me know when you can see the syllabus on the screen. Okay, how about now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, super.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. So, of course, I'm not going to run through every single page of the syllabus, but I do want to go through just some important dates, and then we'll talk about our class schedule. If you need me, students, please make sure that you take down my number, 770-241-9508. I don't have a physical office at the school, so if you need me, please make sure that you guys do a great job of reaching out, or you send an email. I do want to say this. Please, if you're having issues, if you're sick, if you haven't logged in for a week or two, or something's going on, you had a death in the family, please, I know I'm not all in your business, but just let me know, because we just don't know. And then we can work with you. We can extend something for you if we need to. But if I don't hear from you, I'm just thinking you just don't want to be in the class anymore. So please, if something's going on, once you can exhale, let me know. All right. Of course, this particular course is fully online. We don't physically meet. I just wanted to remind students of that. If you don't want to be in the course, the last day to drop is the 13th, and I believe that's Friday, but I hope everybody stays. Everybody got to stay. The last day to withdraw without a penalty will be February the 9th. Our last day of class officially is March the 3rd. I do want to talk about the course description before we kind of get into things today. This particular course, so remember our course is called Introduction. So Introduction to Christian Worship. So we're going to talk about what the big picture is in terms of the history and the foundation of Christian worship. We will take a look at some examples of Christian worship in terms of theology in the Old and New Testament, and how worship changed, or worship addressed the culture of the people. And this is another thing that we will do as well. This is the reason why we have 2 books. I could not offer this class without giving some type of emphasis to African American worship or African American church worship. because many of us are African American, and we find ourselves, studying or participating in that particular realm. All right. So some key learning objectives that we'll have here are to summarize the theology of Christian worship. We'll identify some key components to Christian worship, such as liturgy, rituals, different components that you will see in a worship experience. Music, of course, is very big. And lastly, by the time you leave out of here, you will be able to analyze and look at different social and historical contexts of worship. For example, we will take a look at what worship looked like for uh, enslaved ancestors, what worship looked like in terms of the historical context of the Old Testament. Let's talk about your textbooks. You do have two textbooks. That's the reason why I broke down two. So the first one will deal with African American worship, and this is by, I had the opportunity to meet Professor Melva Costin, and second edition. This is the second edition. Make sure you get that. You can get it from Amazon if you need it. African American Worship is the second edition. And then the second book is Foundations of Christian Worship. That's by Susan White. And so you may say, what was the reason for two books? And I have them on my tablet here. The reason for two books is Melva Costin's book deals more with the history of African American worship and the theology behind it. And Susan White's book will give more of a foundation. She'll talk more about the biblical context there. So that's the reason for two. Not trying to break your bank, but that's the reason for the two. Can't open it up my Kindle. All right, I do want to scoot down before we start our lesson today, and let's talk about how we will be assessed, and then we'll go over our schedule. All right, make sure that you're checking out each week. We will have discussion forums. This is a way for us to talk to each other more, because we don't see each other physically in class. So you may have discussions that deal with your reading for the week. Make sure that you reply to at least two classmates. Your initial post should be at least 200 words. And then when you respond to those two classmates, make sure that your reply is at least 100 words. You'll have reading quizzes that will be based on your reading. There'll be three quizzes, I believe, for this semester. There is a video reflection. I like to find different videos that highlight what we're reading. You will have a Christian worship research paper that comes at the end, and then there is a worship case study. Also, remember that we start our weeks on Mondays and we end on Sunday nights, so that's really easy for me and you, so we know when everything is due. So your work will be due on Sunday nights, 11:59, okay? All right, so each week, it'll run by so fast for us. Each week, you will see what you need to read. So in the beginning, we are going to focus on Susan White's book. Susan White's book. We are going to start with chapter 1 in Susan White, and we're going to stop. You can read, but you can stop at page 22. You're going to do your introduction, your introductory form if you haven't done that already. And you can check out that video if you would like to. It's just going to kind of be what I'm going to talk about today. You'll see each week is broken down. So next week, we're going to still be in Susan White's book. We're going to talk about instrumental music. We'll talk a little bit more about the Mennonite church. I don't want to give it away, but, some churches did not like instruments. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and how instruments were used in worship in the Bible. You'll see in week 3, we're going to talk about rituals. We'll talk about the Lord's Supper or the Eucharist. And I just want to go down a little bit to week 4. You'll see you have a quiz. Trying to make sure I'm going to secure a guest speaker for us, and I'll announce the time for that particular speaker. Week 5, you'll have an assignment for your video summary. You'll have your quiz on week 6. Week 7 will be a case study. And let me see, week 8. Yeah, week 8 is another quiz and your final paper. It seems like it's just, it will just go by so fast. Some of you are also in the other course with me, so make sure you print this out, if you need to keep yourself on schedule. So let me just pause real quick and come back to you. Any questions so far? Oh, all right, everybody stay right there. I am going to pull up our lesson for today. And if you had a question, if you forgot it, just let me know. Okay, I'm coming back to you. Let me know when you can see my PowerPoint. Okay, how about now?
Yes, it's up now.
Super, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, everybody. We are this week, so if you have your syllabus out, always got to make a copy for myself. So this week, everybody, we are focusing on Susan White's book. You have it physically with you, Susan White's book. That's the Foundations of Christian Worship. So I do just want to, what time is it? Okay, we're good. I do want to start off today with an introduction. Uh-oh. Something happened. Do you see it now?
Yes, ma'am. We see the first page.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Something happened and it went off of mine. All right, everybody. I'm gonna just stop right here. I love this picture. I found this picture because it said a lot to me. And let's just pause. Before we go on, I do want to just give this disclaimer. I do understand that, in our class and also our classmates that are watching, we come from a myriad of different backgrounds. Some may be Christian, some may not be, and it is okay. And we are simply sharing from our perspective, so we're respecting all faiths and all walks. So I did want to just give that disclaimer. All right, let me just pause right here. Y'all open your microphones. As we start off, introduction to Christian worship. I picked this picture for a reason. Does this picture say anything to you?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Brother Ingram.
Go ahead.
Professor, this is an exciting picture for me. I mean, they're
Exciting.
praising. We see one lady with notes. She was taking notes.
I saw that.
They're just excited. All of them are praising and just saying, thank you, God, or praise God, or whatever they're doing. They're all doing it together. It's an exciting picture here.
Awesome. I heard the word exciting. And if anybody is able, I can't type right now, go to the chat and put in the word exciting. Okay, let me hear from another classmate. What does that picture say to you? What do you feel anything? Go ahead.
It's to me, it's saying that the people are like Mr. Marshall said, they are excited, they are praising and they're worshiping their God, and they're looking so peaceful and like they're just in a place of peace and joy. That's what that picture says to me.
Awesome. Awesome. So I heard excited, joyful. I did hear this word, togetherness. One of the things that we're also going to gather in White's book as well as Costin's book is the word community or communion as they are doing something together, right? Even their hands is almost uniform. Most of their hands are not, if not up or clapping, they're all standing together. Anybody else have something they want to say that you feel or you see when you see this picture?
I was going to say they are engaged.
Engaged.
They are
They definitely.
fully participating.
All right. I want somebody to put this in the chat. If you can type this in the chat, participating or participation. So these are all key words. I heard excitement, joy, unity, togetherness, doing the same thing, participation. So could we also put in there action? Action. Okay. All right, let's get started. When we talk about, did everybody see my second slide? You see a lady on the
Yeah.
right, and it says foundations.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Always get scared when I advance the slide. All right. All right, we're going to look at the foundations of Christian worship, and this is going to come from Susan White's book. But what does it mean to study Christian worship? Let's wrestle with that question. What does it mean to study Christian worship? Because we might participate in it, we may have seen it, but what do you think it means to study it?
Well, I think you was in studying, you look at all the different types of worship or how different denominations may worship.
Right, looking at different types, that's good. And so from what I heard, I think that was Gloria, so she's saying that it seems that not all Christian groups or denominations or, will worship the same way.
Right.
Mhm.
I think also, Professor, I think we had it in an earlier class that when you study, you would find out the who, what, where, why, and answer all those questions.
Very good, very good, right. Where did we get this practice from?
Yeah.
Who started doing it? There's something I gotta get, I'm gonna make a note. There's something I gotta upload for you. There's a document, it's called the Didache, and I think I sent this to you all if you had the New Testament class. And it's an old document, and it was literal rules that the apostles put together, not just about worship, but or maybe like on church leadership, but there were certain ways that they prescribed to worship or certain ways that they prescribed to do a baptism or those type of things, and that would occur in a worship setting. So I'm going to upload that for you. Okay.
Spell that, Professor.
Oh, I think you got something open. Okay, go ahead.
You spell that word.
Uh-oh. Gloria, do you have a mic open?
I think so. I'm getting ready to close. I'm sorry.
Okay, just mute one.
I got one muted. I must have another open. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I close.
You may have logged in more than once. Okay.
And I will, I'm a,
Okay, thank you. That's sounding better. Okay, all right, Gloria will come back. But when we talk about what does it mean to study Christian worship, so remember, study doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to adopt that practice, right? Like we said, we're going to study different denominations or different groups. For example, like the Mennonite church doesn't use instruments. Well, your church might use an instrument, or maybe you play instrument. It doesn't mean that you have to do that, but we are going to study what different groups do and the reasons behind it. So I like how that was Mr. Lee said the who, what, when, and the whys. Sometimes the whys. What's the why behind it? Where did they get that from? When we talk about Christian worship, so remember there were some words that we used when we talked about that picture. We said there was participation. They were doing things together. I want you to think about this particular word, theology. Theology. Theology, theology. And theology is basically the definition, my easy definition of theology is how we think about God. What do we say about God? How do we view God or the Creator? How does our relationship with the Creator God relate to worship? That's what we're talking about when we talk about the foundations of Christian worship. When we study it, we're also going to look at the Bible. We're going to look at theology. We're going to look at history. We're also going to look at humans. Okay. So in this particular course, we're also going to explore how that big word how do Christians worship? How do Christian people bring themselves to a worship experience? How has it changed? And I'm sure many of us can find different ways where we have observed or even been in the midst of, even in our lifetimes, of how we've seen worship experiences change. Let me just stay right there real quick. We're moving good with time. Let me pause right there with that question. How have you seen Christian worship change? I'm going to say even over the last 10 to 15 years. Now, we know the pandemic did a number on us. You can include that. How have you seen it change?
well, I've seen it change over my lifetime tremendously. I
Yeah.
remember when we were in youth choir and we wanted to have a tambourine, and the deacons wouldn't let us. So we, being children of the 60s, we were going to walk out and boycott and do the, we were crazy, we were teenagers. And to where we are now, I mean, it's basically a whole different form of worship that the X and millennials are doing. But you have to, I guess, change with the times in some respects.
Surely. That's a good example. Good example. Let me hear from another student. If you would like to, you can open your mic. How have you observed or heard or experienced how worship has changed? We said maybe over the last 10, 15 years, or maybe over your lifetime.
Professor, this Marshall, and I agree with Gloria. When I came up, the deacons did the devotion, the
That's
hymn, the prayer, the song, and looked like the spirit came in the church. Now it's the praise team. It's
Yeah.
upbeat, the praise team, and it's not deacons, it's young folks, and it's just music and tambourines and guitars and drums, and it's just a lot louder now. It's loud and just upbeat. But when I was coming along, it was just hymns, and those deacons were do a hymn and the long meter or the short meter, and then
Wow.
someone would pray on their knees, and then someone
Yeah.
would get up and say, "Glory, glory, hallelujah," sing that song. When I laid my burdens down, so it's a little different, but you know, we have a mixture in our church. We have a mixture. Sometimes the old guys do it, but most of the time it's a praise team at the
It's a
beginning of the
praise
church.
team. Awesome. So we've seen how things have changed. And as we talk about foundations, as we continue to move, I'm going to go to this next slide. As we continue to move throughout this semester, we will see that Christian worship has evolved. It has changed with people. Doesn't mean that the creator God changed, but as the people in the culture moved along, or like you said, wanted to be more inclusive of the young people, didn't want the young people to go to sleep. You know, we've included them in worship as well. Look at this picture on the right, on the right-hand side. It says, worship as a mirror of heaven. Susan White says that that is what Christian worship should be. It should be a mirror of what those who follow the Christian faith will hope to see in heavenly worship. When one enters into Christian worship, and when the person enters into this space, so y'all can take your time and to observe the picture on the right. In this church there, at this particular point, it looks like a praise team's on the stage, and they're all standing, look like they're singing and praising. But when a person, when one enters into Christian worship, the person, Susan White says that they enter into like another dimension. They enter into another space. We're not talking about they're necessarily entering into a building, because yes, they may be going into this building. It has chairs, it has carpet and all that stuff. Or on the internet, you know, if you're watching it that way. But what Susan White is saying is that when the person enters into worship, they are transformed. They are in another time or another space. And I'm not talking like space, outer space, but just like in another dimension in their mind. She says that worship also helps people. And I want to chat about this. Worship, she says that worship helps people. It helps us in human struggles of life because it creates an oasis of peace and refreshment. Let's pause right there. Let's chew on this. How can just a worship experience, a service, help someone in their struggle? Anybody seen that?
Well, Professor, it's interesting. You've experienced it, but now I've got to try and put it into words for you.
Yeah, it's a one-on-one experience. You know, maybe you receive a revelation or a message about a situation that you're going through. Not necessarily somebody said, hey, Gloria, you're going through this and this is what's going to happen. But it is a congregational message. Sometimes it helps to be in community with people when you're going through things, and other like-minded people support you, are praying for you, or going through the same thing. So the music, so we're in this particular course, we're going to talk about different elements of Christian worship. So if the person is struggling, the person is down, or they're depressed or something, the music can be soothing. The music can be uplifting for them. The music has lyrics that can edify them or remind them of scripture, remind them of promises. Okay, so you have music, you have liturgy, and liturgy are the things that we say. It could be a creed, it could be a responsive reading, and sometimes those particular words or a phrase or something really just hits with you. Those are just a few examples of how it can help an individual in their struggles.
You one that struck me when the the line, when one enters Christian worship, the person enters another dimension of space.
Mhm.
And you hear very often now they'll say the praise team is going to lead you into worship, but it sounds like you yourself must enter into that space. No one can really lead you
I agree.
there.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to enter yourself. You have to put your mind in that frame. So that's got me thinking about some things.
I agree. I agree. Very good. That's a good observation. So it's something, as we move on, it's something that the individual, okay, let's go to this next point here when we talk about community. It's something that the individual needs to participate in.
Yeah.
I can't beat you and make you do it, but I can be, what's the word, persuasive to help you see that this is a good place to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In Susan White's book, we're going to talk about, I want you to jot this down for your notes. You'll see this later in terms of quizzes, but worship as communion. Worship as communion.
Mm.
Worship can always and is always encouraged to be done individually. Oh, yes. It is nothing wrong with that. But worship can also be done in community. It can also be done in community. So nothing wrong with individual, but it can also be done in community. I want you to pay attention to that Greek word, koinonia. Koinonia. Jot that down. Koinonia, and that means communion or community in the Greek. And communion or worship as communion, let's talk about this. This is where we share. This is where we fellowship. This is where, remember somebody said this earlier, participation. So there is no point in having a worship experience and nobody participates. What's going on with that? Nobody sings or nobody preaches, nobody plays a music or something. There needs to be some type of sharing, some type of participation, some type of fellowship. Okay. Up at the top of that, let's discuss this question that this point that Susan makes. She said that worship is intended for the insiders. Worship is intended for the insiders. That was on page 6. What does this mean to you? What do you think she's meaning by it's intended for the insiders?
Professor, I think that it means that for believers or Christians or people in the same faith,
Sure.
others can come in, but mostly it's for the ones who are in the same faith.
There you go. Okay, I hope everybody jot that answer down. So for example, if I were to go to a mosque, I'm an outsider. I don't know what they do. And they're going to be doing their thing and I'm going to be watching like, oh, okay, what do I do? I'm not sure because I would be an outsider. So exactly what Reverend Marshall said, worship, as Dr. White says, is intended for, and she says the insiders, meaning the people who are of like mind, who are of that particular faith. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're shoving, that the worship experience is shoving people out, right? That doesn't mean that you're putting them out like you can't belong here. Hopefully, it is compelling and inclusive enough where it draws people to be curious and say, hey, I like this. The worship, she says, is intended for the insiders. How we doing with time? Okay. All right, can you see my slide? It says worship is proclamation.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Proclamation. So that's what we do with our mouth. I'm gonna proclaim something. I gotta say something. And we do this, well, the Christian person is going to do this by using their voice. They declare something. So they want to declare something through their voice about what God does during the worship experience. They can do this through creeds. Some of our churches might use creeds such as, we're going to take a look at this later, not today, the Apostles' Creed, or different affirmations which affirm this is what we believe in, and they recite those things weekly. The proclamation, and remember we say proclamation, jot this down so you remember it. Proclamation is done with the voice, is done with the mouth. And so proclamation comes forth with preaching. Proclamation comes forth with somebody's verbal testimony. Okay, so if somebody stands up and says, I need to tell you, this is what God has done for me last week, or so on and so forth, or we talk about somebody else, that is a proclamation. So worship is proclamation, worship as proclamation. How do we also proclaim? Remember, we use the voice to proclaim. We can do this through the use of a liturgy. And a liturgy is what a church might use as something to say. I want you to also see, wait a minute, let me look up here at the top. It originates in two Greek words, laos, L-A-O-S, somebody mute your microphone, meaning people, and ergon, E-R-G-O-N, meaning work. Okay, so a liturgy, you may hear a liturgy said maybe in the beginning of a worship experience, and the whole congregation will come together to say this liturgy. You know, it may be something that they say or declare from their mouths. So remember, proclamation is done with the mouth. And if I ask you, well, how can you proclaim something in worship? It could be through a testimony, it could be through affirmations or creeds or preaching, or the use of a liturgy. Let's see how we're doing. All right, we're doing pretty good. Worship as transcendence. Make sure you get that word down. Worship as transcendence. Transcendence. Make sure you understand this particular word. This means that something of the Creator exists apart from and is not subject to our material world. It's totally not depending on books or TVs or computers or clothes or robes. Don't care. It's just totally apart from that. That's what we mean by transcendence. Worship is an encounter with the transcendent God. And when we talk about worship, and remember in that first slide, we said that worship, Susan White said, you know, worship is when the person, they find themselves like in another space or another dimension because they're interacting with the Creator God, but the Creator God is not tied to a brick and mortar space or a pew or a book. Okay. When we talk about worship as transcendence, humans come into the presence of God, and we're going to see this as we start to study worship in the Old Testament. You go into Genesis, if you see how Abraham moves in the presence of God, Joseph moves in the presence of God, they move with such awe and respect. When you'll see in Old and New Testament examples, when individuals came into the presence of God and they knew it, they would mark it or they would say it. Sometimes we had examples where Somebody's gonna help me out with this example. Who was it? Was it Jacob? Marked the place where he encountered God. I want to say it was with a rock.
Yes, Jacob.
Thank you, Reverend Marshall. Okay, he marked the place with a rock. So you will see in Old and in New Testament time and time again when humans just like us came into the presence and they knew it, and they came into the presence of God. They came into the presence in awe, sometimes bowing down, falling down, respecting God. Okay. How we doing? Ooh, prayer and singing are always ways to open up to the Spirit of God. You'll see examples of that also in Scripture, especially in the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms is about singing and preparing worship. And also, as we talk about worship as transcendence, remember transcendence meaning that the Creator is not limited to physical and material things, that it's a place to renew and to celebrate that community with God. Okay? It's a place to renew yourself. Let me see. Okay, yeah, we're doing good. Okay, now I want to do this before we leave out. I did very good today. I want you to pick up your phone, or if you have a Bible, I want you to go to Amos chapter 5. Let's go to Amos chapter 5. And you'll see it on the screen. We're going to go to Amos 5:21. Amos is in the Old Testament. Amos is in the Old Testament. Amos is a prophet in the Old Testament. It's a good book to read too. All right, so we're going to, as we finish up today, we're going to talk about theology from worship. Theology from worship. All right, and let's do this. Let me we're going to go to Amos chapter 5:21 through 24. And if you have it in front of you, you can read. I'm going to read it out for us, okay? And then at the end, we're going to answer this question. How does the Creator God feel about these people's worship? Here we go. 21. I despise your religious festivals. Your assemblies are a stench to me. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Though you bring choice fellowship offerings, I will have no regard for them. Away with the noise of your songs. I would not listen to the music of your harps. Verse 24, but let justice roll like a river, righteousness like a never failing stream. Okay, that was verses 21 through 24. Amos is a prophet. So Amos is laying it on the people about what they're doing. He answered this question. How does the Creator God feel about the people's worship?
He didn't like it.
Didn't like it, was totally displeased. One of the things, if you read the book of Amos, you don't have to do it right now, but in the book of Amos, Amos is really big on pointing out social injustices. At that particular time, some folks were getting real rich and they were oppressing people who didn't have enough. Okay, so in 21 through 24, Amos is laying it on them. And he's like, look, God is totally not pleased. Y'all come in here with your songs and and you come in here with your offerings. And the Lord said, look, I don't even like your religious festivals. I don't even like your assemblies. They are a stench to me. Don't like them because you're not coming with your whole self and you are doing things that are oppressing the people in the assembly. And so if you look on the right-hand side before we go today, for many people, worship is the primary context for how they develop their theology. And remember, theology is what we think about the Creator God. Okay, so if we think that the Creator God is gonna beat up on people or something, then the person may feel scared. Okay, that's what we mean by theology. It's important for participants to ask themselves when they are in a worship experience. You'll see this question over here. What is this service about? What is it saying? What is it saying about God? What is it saying about God? Is it saying that the Creator God is loving? Is it saying that the Creator God is a parent? Is it saying that the Creator God is helpful, is love? Or is it saying that it hates this person, it hates that person, it doesn't doesn't accept you, it's going to beat you up, those type of things. So we have to ask ourselves in an experience, ooh, what is this saying about the Creator God? In the Bible, we'll talk about this later in the Old and New Testament. We're going to see foundational worship practices. We are going to see where worship is the place where literally the Bible comes alive. We're also going to see in the Old and New Testament how the Creator God questions people. And as we saw in Amos, right? Excuse me. We see this a lot in the Old Testament where the Creator kept hammering on the Israelites about false worship, worshiping people, worshiping wooden idols, golden calves, and things like that, and not worshiping the one and true God. Okay. All right, so let's just pause right here. Let me come back to see you. All right. Good morning, all, to our students that joined us. So when we talk about worship, let's see if y'all remember some of our things. We want to remember worship in terms of what is it speaking as theology? What's the message? And when we say theology, the person's asking themselves, what is this saying about the Creator God? Worship as communion. Y'all remember that K word in the Greek? What's it called? I saw Gloria, you were saying it, but you're on mute.
Koinonia.
Koinonia, very good. Very good. Thank you, Walter. Very good. Koinonia. And so remember, worship can always be done individually. Nothing wrong with that. But koinonia is when we come in community, in communion. And remember those words we talked about, there has to be, it started with an F. Fellow. Yeah, there you go. I saw you were.
Fellowship.
Fellowship. We have to start with a P. The people got to do something.
Participate.
Participation, very good. Yeah, there's no point in we just all laying there asleep. That's not worship, right? We said fellowship, we said participation, and then there was one more started with an S. SH. Share. Sharing, very good. All right, y'all got it. So that's when in communion, there has to be some sharing of something, sharing of love, sharing of a message, share, we get together and in different groups or in different factions or different denominations, it's going to look differently how we share. Thank you. Hey there. Good morning, Miss Duhart. It's going to look different how they participate. It'll look different how they share. It'll look different how they fellowship. But those are key things that need to be there. We say worship is, hold on, reviewing for myself. Oh, remember y'all, we said worship is a mirror of what? It should be.
Heaven.
Mirror of heaven, right?
Worship in heaven.
Okay, all right. I know the thing I forgot to let's review. Worship also, that P word, we have to.
Proclamation.
There you go. proclamation, Reverend Marshall, there you go, proclamation. And we do that with our mouth through, there were a few different examples. How can we proclaim verbally?
Singing, praying,
Preach.
preaching.
Start with an L.
Liturgy.
Liturgy, liturgy, we said. And a T. I want to
Testimony.
get I want to give my testimony. So and we forgot creeds or affirmations or something. So through those things, remember anything that's done verbally. Yeah, the singing, the preaching, testimony, creeds, affirmation. I know I'm forgetting something. Anything we're doing with our mouths. Thank you, Ms. Duhart. Liturgy. Anything we're doing with our mouths verbally is proclamation. Let me just put this in here too. This is just a caveat, almost a little sidebar. Did you know, my pastor, well, he's now bishop now, said that the most unreached group in church is the hearing impaired. And when you think about it, you can understand it. That's why you see a lot of groups, churches, especially those that come on TV or YouTube or something, have now employed, what do you call it?
Sign language.
Sign language, thank you. Have employed sign language because so much of the worship experience is verbal. Is participation. And when I heard that statistic, I said, oh my goodness, I said, that is just, it's awful. But now we're thankful for closed caption, or we can adjust our phones, or you can adjust your computer to get the captions, and the individual can read it that way. But as we are blessed with certain senses, we also want to remember how worship has changed, and sometimes how we may have to, force ourselves to change to be inclusive of those who may not be able to walk in or listen the way that we listen. But anyway, that was just a little sidebar. All right, y'all. As we come to the end, any questions, comments for me? Did very good today.
I have one. Can you put in the chat? Good morning, Happy New Year, everyone. Can you put in the chat, Carnia? Can you spell it for me? I have a brain a glitch this morning. I keep trying to spell it, and it ain't coming out right. It keep coming out cornea, like your eye.
Koinonia.
Koinonia. Yes, I'm not familiar with that word, so I wanted to see it. Thank you.
Here it comes right here. Koinonia, K-O-I-N-O-N-I-A. In the Greek, K-O, like koi, K-O-I. No, N-O, Nia, N-I-A.
Thank you. That way, when I go back and re-listen to this lesson, I can look at the chat for tidbits. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can y'all see it on the screen too? So it's going to be on the slide that says worship as communion. And I'm going to put koinonia on there, okay? Koinonia. All right, there we go.
Miss Berry, could you go back over our class schedule for next week, please, ma'am?
Yes. All right, so you can check your syllabus. So on you said for week 2?
Yes.
So for week 2 is Components of Christian Worship, Chapter 2 in Susan White's book. We're going to focus on instrumental music. I want you to look at pages 47 to 49 in Susan White's book. And then the discussion forum for next week is going to focus on the role of instruments. And so, Janice, I'm trying to pull up the syllabus. But
I don't know the meeting day.
okay. Is this what you needed right here, Janice, week 2?
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
the day that we will, the dates that we're meeting on next week, because I walked in, you were saying that because of Dr. King's holiday, we'll meet.
I was just saying, Monday is a holiday, and like we get started on Mondays. So I understand that Monday is a holiday. We're still going to meet on Wednesdays.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
we're still gonna meet on Wednesdays. So I was just saying that you are more than welcome to get started in the work on Monday, but we understand that it is we're blessed to have this holiday, right? But as we are out and about, or maybe sometimes you may have community service, or sometimes our churches have worship events on Monday. Technically for the college, our week will start on Tuesday, the 17th. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
remember, you're welcome. Remember, good question. We will join back again Wednesdays at 11. For those who are watching and those who may have joined later, I'm going to post in our D2L class. I found an event that we can attend. It is not mandatory. You do not have to go. And I know some people are spread out all across Georgia at the DeKalb Museum of History. There is a presentation, and I think it has lunch on the history of Black church music. And I'll post that. We'll talk more about that as we get into February, okay? All right, everyone. Don't want to hold you too long. I hope that you're doing well. And if you have any questions, just please let me know. All right. Good seeing you again.
All right. See you, Professor.
Take care.
All right, you as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Professor.
Have a blessed day.
You too. Take care.
Have a great one.